So to get some, oh, okay, there we go. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous as hell. I know you're not supposed to say that when you're about to do a presentation. My presentation also has bullets in it as well. But not saying that I'm, or acting like I'm not nervous is kind of not how I roll, especially like in doing user research. When I'm trying to like go out there and meet with people and talk with them, it's kind of really important to be sort of authentic. That said, I may not always be fully upfront with the participants as I'm talking to them, but I definitely try to let them know if I'm nervous, or just try to put that authenticity out there. I like to think I've been sort of mastering this skill also of learning how to do dialogue like this, which this is very alien to me. I'm used to engaging in a conversation in which I'm doing as little talking as possible. And a therapist would probably say I didn't master anything. That's just like a coping mechanism for some psychological disorder. But anyway, so bear with me as I kind of sort of build my momentum going. So first of all, my name is Stefan Walger. I'm a user experience analyst for Vivint. And specifically, I work with our product development teams. Primarily the user experience design team at our Innovations Center down in Lehigh. And today I'm here to talk about walking a mile in the shoes of others, kind of fundamentally about empathy. And I like Whitney Casenberry, I hope I'm not saying her name wrong, but I give her permission to say my name wrong, in which she defines empathy as the ability to understand and identify with another person's context, emotions, goals, and motivations. I feel it speaks a bit more to kind of what we do, designing and developing products for people who are not us. And Whitney is just one of many in our industry that I look to when I'm trying to make sense of this world of user research and user testing, So I'm always looking for methodologies and process to help me move faster and more reliably as I go on. I'm quick to kind of drink Kool-Aid, but I try to drink a lot of Kool-Aid and a lot of different Kool-Aid and start learning over time what Kool-Aid works best for me. And years ago, I came across this book from IDEO, the Human-Centered Design Toolkit. You may be familiar with it. And I kind of keep coming back to their perspective on product development. And I'm not exactly sure why, but I can say at Vivint, one of the awesome things that I've had that I really love is it's the opportunity to work on products, both physical products and digital products, because we're starting to bring in the physical design of products more in-house. So I get to work with the industrial designers. And in this toolkit, they talk about these three lenses of human-centered design. The first being desirability, then feasibility, then viability. And in their toolkit, they kind of visualize it like lenses. So you've got desirability, what people desire. You've got feasibility, what the organization can build technically or organizationally. And then you've got viability, what will be financially viable, what's going to support the business. Let's see. So this human-centered design, it's a technique, it's a process for creating new solutions. And it's called human-centered design because it starts with the needs of the people you want using or to be affected by your solutions. And then once you've kind of gone through that like lens of desirability, you're then bringing it through the other lenses as well. And the idea is that the solutions that ultimately emerge come from the overlap of all three so that your solutions are desirable, feasible, and viable. Now, this is no guarantee that the solutions that emerge ultimately are going to be successful. I'm not here to sell you silver bullets. And I may say this repeatedly, but much of what I do is not necessarily saying, hey, if you do this, you can't lose. It's more like, hey, if you do this, we're removing some of those obstacles that might impede the success of the products that we're working on. So let's say we've thoroughly tested it, the usability of a given product. Then we can say a little bit more confidently, hey, if this product, with all the challenges that it's going to meet, usability may not, we feel it's not going to be a reason why this product is going to fail out in the market. Now, sort of a more specific example of this, of how these three lenses have kind of keep coming up. We've been going out into customers' homes, and we've been watching them install this. This is our doorbell camera. And it wasn't designed for people to install it themselves, but we're like, hey, this is going to be a great test. Let's just see what they can do, and let's see if we can design an experience, instructions or whatever, so that we can have them install this themselves. And from our observations, and I'm going to be speaking very generically because we're in the middle of this project and I can't really talk too specifically about the details, but we identified a solution that we thought would really make the installation go much better. So we brought it into consideration. We knew it was desirable, but then we met with our product engineers to start assessing the feasibility. What is it going to take to make this? And in doing so, we discovered that this thing was inherently attached to this huge amount of work, and it wasn't going to fit through like the overlap of these three lenses if we tried to build it or to actually bring it into life. And the thing about it was more so the restrictions of the regulatory process involved was going to add months and months to this. So what we had to do was we eliminated the feasibility of it basically. But what we did was we sort of took the feature back. We took a look at it, and we wanted to strip out some of our ideal experiences or our ideal expectations out of it. And honestly, the solution was something we romanticized. We thought, oh, it'll be so awesome if we do this. But we decided we're going to focus just like on the core value that this brings to the user, simplify it, bring it back in, and then we realized it was free of those constraints so we could move forward. And the doorbell camera, we known it's incredibly viable for Vivint, so that was just an easy thing for us to go and to consider. So all three of these lenses must be addressed in a product's development. Although all three have to be addressed, I'm going to be focusing a little bit more over on this area, on the lens of desirability, which kind of sounds like a video game quest or something. But in my discussion, I'm going to be moving kind of back and forth between sort of academic talk and then just sort of like the day-to-day practical examples in my experiences. But this is where we focus more on the human portion of human-centered design. What do the people we design for desire? I put desire in quotation marks because it's not like we're going out in the field and being like, tell me what you desire. We go through a huge process to then determine what people will desire, and then we turn back around and we take our idea and we validate that in the market. Or with consumers or customers. But it's not so much the lens of desirability that I wanted to focus on, as it's portrayed here at least, because for me, that lens represents the validation of those solutions, aka the features and the products. It represents what they have to pass through in order for this product to be what we would call desirable. I'm going to focus a little bit more on the journey of understanding the behaviors and attitudes of the people that we designed for. Now, there is this magical moment in which we find ourselves beginning to see the world through other people's shoes. But I'm German, I'm not a magician. I'm about the tedious office work that we got to do to ensure the product of our research, which is empathy, has the best chance to succeed. So shifting that focus and sort of looking at the journey that we make in the observing and learning, followed by the journey of sort of sense making, of creating solutions, the analysis and the synthesis of what we learn. And I've actually also found that in my explorations, there's sort of another journey that happens before we even do this, before we go out into the field and start learning behaviors and attitudes. And this starts, you can kind of see behaviors and attitudes over there. But there's this thing, and I've not really seen it addressed all too often. Some people will talk about it in the planning of research, but I've come across this time and time again throughout the research process, and especially even at the end. And I feel it's incredibly important to consider, because even though user-centered design is about the user, user research is about the user. User testing is about the user. It really all starts with you. I know it's a little cheesy, but I truly believe this, each and every one of you. So as we sort of start this journey, the question becomes, well, who are you? Are you UX designers, product managers, developers, program managers, marketing directors, industrial designers, researchers, information architects, customer support? What about, are you a student still? Are you interning at the company? Is this your first career? Did you just get promoted where you're at into the position that you are? Or have you been around the block? I mean, you're an award-winning industry expert, consultant, 15 years. This is your third career. What are your goals? Are you looking to be the next Steve Jobs? Are you looking to dethrone the great empires of social media and replace it with your own? Do you just want to design the next spinner for the Netflix, like what you see when you're waiting for your programs? Do you want to be that masked hero riding in to save the day with your brilliant ideas and then riding off into the sunset? People saying, who was that masked hero? Now, I don't mean to play you all out to be some greedy, businessman going around being greed is good. I want to overthrow and be the best. Many of you strive to help others. Are you looking to help those in need? To be a voice for those who God may not even be able to talk? Are you looking to make the world a better place? How do you research right now? Are you in the field conducting ethnographic research? Do you bring consumers in to conduct focus groups? Or do you more commonly read books specializing in the context of the problems you're trying to solve? Watching seminars of experts, drawing inspiration from other apps or software that you really love, other UI that you think is just awesome, that's recognized in the field for being totally awesome. Do you read blogs? Do you watch TED Talks and hear people talk about philosophical views on the world? Or you're keeping up with the latest and the greatest from Apple? And why does this matter? What's with like the third degree? Like, come on, this is about the user research. Get me off your sofa here for a second. But here's why it matters, because the answers to all of those questions and more, well, they're the shoes on your feet. And I can just say walking a mile in the shoes of another person is going to be much easier if you take your shoes off first. And especially if you're wanting to work with your teams and helping them take their shoes off as well. So I'm going to just take a little quick detour as to why I'm talking about this and spending the time to talk about it. In a meeting recently, actually it was just last week, the designers were trying to convince the developer of the value of this feature for our sign-up process, in which we use like geolocation to serve up an address for the user's address, so that they don't have to go through the pain of having to type it on their phone. They can just see it on a map and they can be like, yes, that's me. Now, the developer was arguing that they thought this was not the best solution for the needed reliability of this information. And then tensions started to rise inevitably. And after much debating, they decided to talk about it later. And as they were leaving, one of the designers roughly said, this is not verbatim, but kind of just in their frustration, they were like, I'm tired of meeting this resistance. Like, here we are, we're just trying to bring everyone into the future. And I've run into this attitude before at other companies as well with other designers. It kind of goes like, I've studied under masters like Dieter Rams and Leibniz. I give him permission to say my name wrong. I've traveled to the ends of the universe with Stephen. I've explored countless of Tesla's inventions. I've been inspired by some of the greatest minds on this planet. And you, Stefan, you want me to go and talk to the people of Walmart and to have them sit at my table and tell me what features that I should be putting and developing and what products? And although I am exaggerating, I truly have had UX designers and product managers tell me that they didn't really think they could learn anything from the users. And I know we should all like balk at it, but I mean, the fact of the matter is there are times I've got that attitude as well. It's not that these designers were so arrogant, though, we all certainly can be. I think that it was more so that user research just wasn't in their comfort zone of the things that they researched. It's much easier to learn from these experts that have gone out and they've done the research and they're packaged it up for us in a step-by-step tutorial where each step moves us forward. It's much easier to read a book than to write one. And that's what we're trying to do when we are doing user research, when we try to walk in the shoes of our users, and our users aren't walking down a predetermined path. They're wandering aimlessly through life trying to figure things out as well. So when we get into their shoes, the next step we take, well, it may not make us move forward. We might move off to the side, and then we might step backwards again. But we take that journey, and hopefully we help each other out so that we can start applying it to like our own story. So we can start writing our own book. And the thing about like user research that's also difficult is one thing that's kind of important in the process is it's getting completely lost. We're not going down a path that we've been before again. We're discovering something new. And feeling lost is not something that we want to do, especially when our boss is like, we're doing our one-on-one, so what'd you do this week? And I'm like, I don't know, I'm totally lost. Like how's that product though coming on? It's going to be due here, by Black Friday. And that's a big part of kind of what I'm working on for my job at Vivint, but also just my career in user research and in user testing. Learning about the journey and getting completely lost at times. But I am starting with the base, and I've kind of chosen for this exploration to use what I've learned from IDEO. Now, IDEO also illustrates this right here, and I think they do a little bit better than what I do. And one of the things that I think they do better is I had this as being like the large chunk and abstract being like the small little chunk. And it's more accurate like this. The actual act of going out and hearing and observing, we'll go out and we'll talk to a family for 1-2 hours, and then we'll spend countless hours just trying to make sense of that. And in this process, which is also, I think, kind of clever. They've got HCD doesn't just stand for human-centered design. It stands for hear, create, and deliver part of their process. And here they show that you're moving into the world of the concrete here. And then as you're analyzing and synthesizing, you're moving into the world of abstraction, of just like ideas and themes and stories and what-ifs. And then you take that, you're starting to turn that back into solutions and into the products that you then are testing and launching out there into the world. And I've got deliver, a little bit more darkened out here because I'm not really going to be focusing much time on deliver. So one of my goals is actually to explore this model, adapt it to my process, and the process at Vivint to help me taking the teams sort of on this journey. So I've been doing this by just sort of like adding some things to it that I feel I've come into, that I've had to do in my years of doing this. And I'm just like throwing things out there. I'm just sort of sketching out some of the stages of this process. I know that planning is critical before the actual journey in the user's world. And here you can see it's just rough at first. It doesn't need to be pretty, and it's not. I'll worry on that a little bit. I think I'll call this one the plan phase. But then what about the recruiting, the field guide, the scheduling? This is stuff that just eats the hours away from my schedule. Well, I'll push this aside. I'm going to just sort of kind of throw that in there. I'll call it like the here phase, I think. But in there's like the field guide, the recruiting, the qualifying, schedule and training. I don't know, it's getting a little bit, I kind of get messing things up, and I don't know, something's not right about this process. Can't quite put my finger on it. And then there's this other thing that now I know stands before that, and that was what I was talking about earlier, understanding the goals and attitudes of the designers. But some of it's not looking good here. And the problem isn't necessarily with the pieces and the parts. I'm trying to slap a label on it before it's ready to be like evangelized and turned into a process. I haven't really even tested this thing out. And I can easily start going back in and cleaning this up here in like Photoshop and Illustrator. But really the important thing is to get this idea out there, flush it out further, and to actually start applying it to a specific project that I'm working on with the teams at Vivint. I'll just need to translate a few things, though. This is sort of like just generic process to make it Vivint's. It's not about like understanding the UX designer and product manager. Now it's just about understanding Cooper and Tyson and those people. Their behaviors become more about what they've already got on their desktop files and Dropbox files and so on and so forth. What data have they already been storing? So this is actually then where I am beginning to start the journey to walk the team into the world of our users, starting with the understanding of the team. And this is here the team that we're working with. We're actually going to be conducting some field studies next week. We're going to be spending 3 hours shadowing some people and understanding them. So this phase here, the understand though, one thing about it, it's not like really a phase I'm going to take the team through. It's sort of like special ops. It's just what I'm going to do because my role at Vivint is to be the facilitator. So if I'm going to be facilitating this team, it's kind of my job to understand that team. There are no meetings here. I'm not going to schedule that. I'm just going to have a conversation with them because that's the most appropriate method of getting this information. I want them to kind of lower their guard. I don't want them to be putting their work shoes on. I want to see their UX design, their shoes. There are no reports. It's just going to be mental notes at this point. And then once I have finished this, it's just something that I keep on file in my records just to be aware of. These are the things I need to be aware of so that I can avoid any pitfalls in what I have to do in facilitating the team. If I know that Cooper's never done this before, I'm going to change things up a little bit to make this more of an experience about learning for him than I am about like just trying to push the team forward to just get some results. Because my ultimate goal is that Cooper's going to start doing this independently. He's not going to have me do this because honestly, and I think I just either jumped ahead. Honestly, I'm at the point at Vivint, I can't even support our teams anymore. We've got too many huge projects, and I'm just like holding onto their coattails now, just trying to like throw in a test here every now and then. So we've got this, the Vivint sort of projects X that I'm now going to be applying this to. And we move into sort of the strategize. And this is where the work actually is going to become more of a formal process. I now want to move forward with the team. This is really important. I believe this has sort of been said before. Bring the whole team in as much as possible at the very beginning. Don't bring them in at the very end when you've got a report. That's not going to build empathy on there. Make them as much a part of the process as possible. And in the strategize, let me just double check. Okay, in the strategize, basically what we're just doing here is like a brain dump. This is the goals and the objectives that we're going to get from this. With the brain dump, we're trying to get out what we know, what we think we know, and what we don't know. And we're just sort of trying to I'm trying to see what the shoes the team is kind of wearing. But here's the important thing that I tell them. We're just trying to get all of their hypotheses and all of their expectations and all the things they think. We want to just get it out of their minds so that they can make room for maybe a different perspective. And we try to document that, and we get everything out on the table there. You've got to work hard to make a comfortable environment where people feel comfortable doing that. Then for the goals and the objectives, now I've been doing this wrong most of my entire life. I always try to start with writing this awesome goal, and then I write objectives, and then I just try to cram everything to sort of fit into that goal and that objective. Actually, what I find to be works best for me is start out with just all the questions you have. Flush them out, categorize them, and ask why. Put those categories that you do into larger buckets. Keep asking why again. You're going to ask why enough, you're going to be able to categorize the answers to the why. And the themes that evolve, those themes evolve into your objectives. And then the overarching themes start evolving into your goals on that. I recommend, I don't have any stock in 3M, but I'm just like a Post-it note kind of crazy person, and you'll see exactly how crazy this gets towards the end. And don't worry about what questions to ask the user yet. I get this a lot now because most people know I scrutinize over questions, and they're trying to like not offend me with like their questions. Which I just try to tell them, like, look, just what do you want to know? Don't think about what we're going to ask the users. What are your questions? I know I'm probably going to get a lot of slack for this one. there are dumb questions, and we know some of those dumb questions are the questions that are never asked. Get them out there, and I'm honestly, I'm guilty of this. I don't ask questions because I feel they're dumb, but get them out there and let them inspire the brilliant ones. It's not about editing. It's not about deleting. It's about just getting it all out of our heads. So now, if the time is right, I'm going to try to blaze through here a little bit faster. We've gone through the Strategize, and then we're going to be moving into the plan. And again, these are all this is the tedious work that we do so that when we step out there for that 1 hour with that customer, we are making that 1 hour count for as much as we can, because what we're going to get from that hour can help us for years. The research that we did when we flew to 24 families across the U.S. and we spent 2 hours with them, this was 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago, we're still using that data. We're still using that in our personas today, and we're still referencing that information. It was worth the work that we put into it. And all those questions that we were getting from this, the sort of the Strategize, they actually are going to help us determine our strategy towards going about answering those questions. In 2008, Christian Rohr released this landscape of user research methods. I refer to this quite frequently, and here you can see there's like a 2x2, behavioral and attitudinal, qualitative and quantitative, and then he just plots these different research methods. Now, we're just focusing on this one today. I've had the opportunity to use every single one except eye tracking. So if any of you are ever going to be doing eye tracking, I'd love to just participate in that and understand that one. I feel if you're going to do a comprehensive research project, you need to include multiple methodologies in this. I like to use the word triangulate, where I try to use 3 different research methods and make sure that they're far away from each other on this map. But this is what we're talking about, ethnographic. And this is kind of the generic or the go-to image when you sort of type that up in Google or search about it. This is Priscilla McGrath, and she's in West Java, Indonesia, having lunch with a group of women and children in her studies for health governance out there. And given that I'm focusing on this sort of ethnography, this question, how do we find the answers to our questions, I sort of focus that more about how do we ask the right questions. So this, and hopefully it's not too clear, but this is a picture of the field guide that I'm going to be using next week. And you can see that there's clusters of questions, and then there's sort of like larger groups of that. That's exactly what I did. I grouped all these questions together and found their themes, and I'm kind of developed those into larger topics. And we're going to take that out there. As best as possible, I'm not going to just sit there and read these questions from the field guide. I'm going to read this dozens of times and just try to get it in my brain when we go out there, so there's nothing kind of impeding the conversation. So as far as like asking the right questions, the best that I can tell you are just some of these sort of fundamentals about it. The right questions, the right question encourages the participant to tell their story about a given topic. It gives them the greatest latitude, the freedom to answer this question. In fact, I try not to even ask questions. I think of them more as like conversation starters, but it's not a conversation. It's me throwing a topic out there, shutting up and listening, and them doing all the talking. So like in this example, is your smart thermostat valuable to you? Well, we kind of know what the answers are going to be. One word. Yes, no, sort of, maybe. What we want to try to do is think about like, maybe if it's not a question, and I use this a lot, tell me about. Tell me about the last time your Nest thermostat proved to be of value to you. So we've got encouraging storytelling for the right questions. The right questions do not introduce our vocabulary or value words. They're as vague as possible. In fact, sometimes I'll make a complete fool of myself and I'll be like, so what do you call this? And he'll be like, a bicycle? I'll even prepare myself to look like an idiot, and I'll be like, oh, I've got a bicycle too. It doesn't look anything like that. Can you tell me about that? And then my hope is that they'll be like, oh, this is my road bike. I use this for this and that. And here's my mountain bike. I use that for this. Also, it doesn't introduce our worldview. The right questions are not about proving us right or wrong, but they are truly about learning. It's hard not to do this. Like you're talking to someone and you're like, yes, what I said in that meeting, like I wasn't a fool. Like other people feel this way. And here's another thing, and this is not the more common thing, but you'll find this a little bit more as you're talking to someone. The right question gives the participant good feedback that we are engaged. Now, with recruiting and qualifying, I'll be brief about this one and just say, look, it's about finding the right people. Because great answers from the wrong people probably aren't going to set us down the right path. Define the behaviors of the people you want to talk to. You may want to talk to someone who has, attitudes. Like, I want to talk to someone who really loves technology. Okay, well, think about that. What do the people who love technology, what do they do? What would they own? Because I can find out if someone owns a Nest thermostat probably a little bit more easily than someone who just loves, technology. I mean, most people would be like, yeah, sure, how much you paying me? Yeah, I love technology, Also, you want to verify they are comfortable talking. Try out one of your open-ended questions. Ask them that. If they can't talk for 2 sentences on a good open-ended answer, just thank and decline and move on to someone else. Because the last thing you want to do is fly to Chicago in the middle of winter, drive through the streets, walk the streets, and then reach someone who's just like, yeah, sure, that's cost thousands of dollars to go talk to someone who is just, it's not that they're a bad person, that's just, they're not talkers. Schedule and travel, all right, again, real quickly, just make sure it's safe. And I'm throwing this in there not just because my ratio to slides to cat pictures is horribly off, but you just never know when a zombie attack is going to happen. But more seriously, do you know if your teammates are allergic to pets, and are you taking them into a house with crazy cat lady with 25 cats? And schedule backups. This did happen to us. We were driving to the participant's house. I was trying to call them, and then I called, luckily, well, I shouldn't say luckily, but we did use a recruiting agency. I contacted them, and they were like, they're not comfortable. Sorry. They rescheduled us another interview. We lost an hour, but we still got the interview. So that is planning. So this is it. This is what we've been working so hard for. And it's kind of interesting that in this phase, there's kind of nothing to it with all that we've been sort of fussing over. And for the observer, and in this instance, I'm going to say I'm the facilitator and you've all come along with me to go talk to participant X. You are the observer. Your job, I'd like to say that it's really easy, but I've got a story about how it's not. Your job is shut up and listen. And your other job is see step 1. And I joke, but again, in a recent test where we were testing our doorbell, we had brought an engineer with us, and the participant needed to confirm that the power to their doorbell was turned off. And they were flipping on lights. I mean, it took them 15 minutes to find the right fuse, but they were going in, they were looking at the doorbell, they were flickering it on, And the engineer was like, and then finally he's like, just ring the doorbell, and the user was like, oh, yeah, duh, yeah. So he and he kept doing that, and he did this like 5 times before he finally just turned everything off in his fuse box and then finally rang the doorbell. I just sort of laughed it off a little bit. The product manager gave him like good stink-eyed. He's like, I'm sorry, I just couldn't help myself, and the user felt stupid after that. And throughout the conversation, he kept referencing how stupid he was because, duh, ring the doorbell. I didn't think of that when I was installing my own doorbell. And that's sort of like we want to avoid doing that. The engineer also, unfortunately, did it twice more. Just couldn't help. He apologized, and he's like, just don't ever invite me on this again. But it was good for him to actually see it, because he'll never unsee the problems that user had and the way that the user did not see that engineer's product the way he engineered it and designed it. Is it 12:33? Am I just like blowing way past my time here? I will try to move as quickly as possible here. I apologize. So really for that, shut up and listen, but also do not react too much and be aware of your position. Meaning, if they say something interesting, don't be like, yes, that was so interesting. And they're like, well, everything else I said, you didn't think that was interesting. And then your position on that. And this is how we were in that last doorbell test. There were about 12 of us that showed up. I didn't know so many people. And he was screwing the doorbell in, and we were all like this, and I had my camera like that, and another person had their camera, and he's turning, and he stopped, and he looked up, and we're like, just act natural. We had a good laugh about it, so we could move on past there, but really he was starting to sweat bullets because he already felt stupid, and we were just like, scrutinizing his every move. Now, as the facilitator, though, you've got some bigger roles here. You're going to be working on building rapport, managing flow, and getting answers. Building rapport is that close and harmonious relationship in which people or groups concerned understand each other's feelings and ideas and communicate well. In doing this, your social graces matter. Make introductions. Arrange the seating. State your objectives as to why you're there, but don't tell them completely why you're there. Just, hey, we're here to learn about you. Address any agreements and ask permissions. For managing the flow, there is a flow, by the way, to this conversation. You've got your kickoff question. Accept the awkwardness, just like it's awkward for me to get started, and honestly, it's awkward for me right now eating into your lunchtime. Accept it. You reach a point, though, where you work through that and you hit the tipping point, and that's the moment when the conversation is not, so, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm fine. But then it's like, so tell me about, and then they're just like going at it, and they're telling you their life story. Keep on track, though, and reflection and projection, and you will reach a point closer to the end of your conversation with the user in which they are very comfortable. They've built a rapport with you and with the topic, and they're ready to get a little bit deeper and higher level on this. And a soft close. And remember, the conversation isn't over until they close the door and you walk away. They're going to be like, and another thing is you're like trying to get your bag and make it to the next interview. And they'll be talking to you through, and they might give you some of the greatest insights in those few minutes. Get the answers. Silence defeats awkwardness, and be vigilant. Use that awkward silence to your advantage. Ask your question, be diligent about it, and then shut up. Sometimes, and I've done this before, I'm like, so what did you eat for breakfast? And they're just sort of sitting there. I'm like, did you have eggs? Did you have toast? Did you have coffee? And I'm giving them their answers. Just be quiet. Let them feel that awkwardness. And then revisit. And let's see, just some things to know. Participants have these goals too. Even though you've never met and they've never done research before, they do have these goals. So I think, actually, I'm going to let you go and have your lunch, but I do want to say there's definitely more to talk about, but as far as this is kind of the most important thing. I recommend Steve Portigal's book. It's a short read. It's easy to read. It's conversational. Steve's been doing this for a year. He's one of the industry experts, and he goes in and he outlines a lot of this as well. There's definitely another journey to take beyond that, but right now, just go take the journey to lunch. And thank you so much for your time.